Hey, how's it going? My name is Tim. I am an upcyclist. I make things out of reclaimed and upcycled materials. Today I'm going to show you how I made this electric guitar out of reclaimed wood and used guitar parts using that machine and that software. Oh, but wait, there's more. You don't like this style guitar? How's this? Check it out, I'll show you how I did it. And there's downloadable files so you can do your own. I just shove this in the computer, right? And then it spits out a guitar. Is that how it works? Vectric software asked me to make a guitar for them. And I said, I am the last person that should be telling anyone how to use the CNC. I'm not super experienced, but what they wanted me to do was to show how it can be used as an upcycler's tool, and I'm going to do just that. So I have this old piece of reclaimed pine. It's nothing fancy, but I don't want to just make them a normal guitar. I wanted to see if I could have a little fun with the software and the design of this one instead of just cutting out a guitar shape. First I got to get this down to a manageable size. Let's pause here to go over the plan. I have this used Dan Electro guitar neck. So between all of these parts that I just have laying around, I have all the hardware and everything I need. Now the idea for the body is to make one of those retro kind of 80s new wave guitars you might remember from such popular videos as Susudio. What was the one that wore the flower pots in their heads? That's what I say. Suppose you're a typical working class musician. You're doing all sorts of gigs. Sometimes you got the 80s cover band that plays on the weekends. Maybe you have a heavy metal band that you play in. So you might need a flying V guitar. Then you got a wedding the next day. Somebody kill me, please! And now you have like a more traditional type guitar. Body parts will be created on the CNC. This one will actually be 3D carved. I'm going to make some templates to lay in my T-track and my holes. That's about it. What could possibly go wrong? All of my files and a written tutorial are available at Vectric.com. I'll put a link in the description below. And all the original music you're going to hear through the rest of this video was recorded with this guitar. Now let's check out these files. Some of them are two-sided files like this one here, the front and back of the guitar body. Now you'll notice in a second that I had put 4 dowel holes on the back part here where there's a sound cavity and some other drilling. So if you drill those 4 holes into your wasteboard, you can mount dowels, and when you flip the piece over it'll be perfectly aligned and you can continue to cut the front side as well. And then some of them, like the wings, are just very simple vectors that need to be cut out. Now the archtop files are a little more complicated because they're 3D carved, and I did these in Aspire 8.5 before the new version 9 came out, and in 9 you can do both sides of a piece in the same file and then flip them over. But for this it didn't really matter because the guitar is symmetrical, so the top and the bottom are the same, and then when I wanted to cut the back out, which matched, I just used the bottom as the back of the top and the top is the back of the bottom, and I just didn't cut the F-holes out. So it all worked out pretty well, and I used my dowels again to align it all up. Now it's time to do all this for real. Pull up the files and start cutting them out on my new CNC machine right here. This is a CNCRouterparts.com machine. It's a benchtop model. I'm not even going to bother running test patterns because any of the material I had to run test patterns on, it's going to be more expensive than what I'm making the guitar out of. Included in the package are some templates that I made for just helping you to figure out how to attach the body and the wings and stuff here. I'm cleaning them up. I just cut them out of some scrap MDF. And then I kind of worked my way up through the difficulty of carving, starting with the very simple 3D vectors like my first set of wings here, which turned out great. Then next I did the main guitar body. Here I drilled those 4 holes in the corners and I made them deep enough to go into my wasteboard so I could set these dowel pins in, and then that way I could put it back in like that, screw the material down to keep it from moving, and I had a perfect setup so when I flipped it over everything would line up perfectly. I can pull this off, I can flip it upside down, keeping the orientation the same way, put it right back in these holes, and since my zero hasn't changed and my board is in exactly the same position, we should be good to go. This is my first time doing any kind of two-sided carving, and it worked out pretty good. There was a little bit of sanding to do just to even up the edge, but it was only like, I mean, a 64th of a millimeter or whatever that was off. And now I'm using my template, as you can see, to set up the router table so I can route a slot into the sides of the guitar body to hold the T-track. I did a test first on a piece of scrap 2x4, and once I was convinced that it was all set, I went and I did it on the body. I had to clean up the end, of course, with the chisel, and then cut the T-track to fit into that slot. I'm just cleaning up the edge there. And while I'm doing all this, the great thing about having a CNC is in the background I've got these time-consuming projects happening. This CNC is just cutting away on my 3D carved bodies, and I'm getting all the other work ready. It's really neat. It's kind of like there are two of me in the shop at the same time, except for one of me is actually a pretty good woodworker, and the other one is just screwing up all the work the first guy did. But the machine is not absolutely perfect. I still had to do some sanding for it. Of course, I got stuck doing that. I decided I don't like the V shape. I want it to actually wrap around the guitar and come into the middle of it more, like this. And there's a couple reasons why that I'll get into later. I don't have any more of that one board that I used to cut all this stuff, so I just dug this 2x6, actually 1.5 by 5.5, out of a pile of pallet scraps out here, and I'm gonna cut them out of that. I did that off camera because it wasn't very exciting, and with pallet wood sometimes you get these weird chips and breakouts and kind of crappy parts, so I just did the best I could to sand them all in and make them look okay. Accuracy is super important when laying out guitar bridges and parts. And perhaps the most nerve-wracking part of every guitar build is drilling these holes from the pickup cavities and from under the bridge for ground wires and to wire the pickups to get them into the pocket. On this guitar, the pocket is really small, so it was like really a very small target I had to shoot for. I was afraid of that, just missed. That's okay, my plate covers that, so I'll just chisel that out a little and get the wire right in. So we've actually got plenty of room here. I'm going to move you up just a little bit closer. I made this template on the CNC to help me figure out where I'm going to mount all my bolts for this sliding track mechanism. So I butt this up. I marked the template too, which side goes where. I butt this up on the inside, make it flush with the top. And now I can use these two holes here to mark my drilling locations. I'm going to put a couple of these recessed bolt holders in there, and then screw in my bolts. Now regular 1/4 inch 20 bolts fit into that T-track without doing this, but I rounded them off and made the heads a little smaller just to ease that action of sliding this guitar in and out, because if they were left hexagonal they would have to be perfectly lined up and everything would just have to be perfect for it to go in, and when they get tight I can still twist them in with pliers. We have to keep them from falling off though. I wanted the wings to be able to slide on and off real quickly, and at first I had this very simple like turning mechanism to turn one of the bolts tight in the T-track, but then I realized that just adding a couple magnets to the bottom of the guitar would be enough to hold it in place plenty stable and be able to make the movement happen quickly. So with it in this flat configuration, I'm going to sand it all in and make this all fit nice and smooth so the V looks good. And then when the V looks good, I'm going to put this on and see how it looks. It should all work out pretty good. I don't like painting stuff. Usually I like to do, leave wood natural or like stain it some funky color or black or something, but I might go through this and paint this. I'm not really sure yet. I ended up deciding to paint it since the wood didn't all match perfectly, and I used a little bit of just regular body filler you'd use for automotive work to fill in some of the imperfections on the instrument, sand them out, taped up some of the hardware, and painted it. But I am not a good painter. It looks good from, the stage.
I used a spray lacquer in a rattle can, and it's definitely different than spray paint. And while the paint was drying, I was able to cut out some of the plastic parts I needed for the guitar on the CNC. I like to use vinyl records. They're my favorite. And you'll see I don't use like Beatles records. I just use weird compilation records and stuff. I don't know about you, but there's always that point in the build where you're just like excited, and that was this here when I got to finally start assembling this instrument and putting it all together. It was Monday morning, I was bright and fresh. And here, check this out now. You can buy guitar ferrules that you would put in this location to run bolts through your body into your neck. I just use those cheap ones from the hardware store because those things are like $1 a piece at guitar parts stores. Now this is a used neck and it had a bunch of holes in it already, so I had to go ahead and carefully drill out new holes just to get that all to work. And it worked fine. I just used regular wood screws too. And then it's time to string it up and see what happens. So it actually works, which is a relief. And the paint job I'm not too pleased with. I used a spray-on white lacquer and I didn't do a very good job prepping it. I was thinking about going through and fixing out the paint job, but then I thought about it. I was like, this isn't a video sponsored by a paint company. Since the only 3D carving I did on that particular guitar was the sort of arch top shaped wings, and it wasn't using Aspire 9's full double-sided 3D carving, I thought I should try one more file just to see if I could do that two-sided carving. That file is also attached. I took one of my body designs and I modified it a little bit and put the Aspire logo in it and used the Aspire logo for F-holes. I just did this very quickly out of some scrap LVL that was being thrown away at a construction site. So you can see all this interesting grain, and it shows you another potential of the type of stuff that you can do with reclaimed material and quote-unquote trash in or with a CNC or without a CNC for that matter. So it's not the best. This is my first attempt and it's a little thin. I made a few mistakes, but the file will be included so you can improve upon it. And maybe I'll cut another one. I'm out of time for now, but thank you all very much for watching. I hope you learned something about making with CNC or making with reclaimed or both. I know I learned about both, and I hope you enjoyed and had a good time at the very least. Thanks for watching and be good. I'm gonna go play this.